Right, hello everyone. So I think what I'm going to talk about follows on quite nicely from the previous presentation actually. So our little project is a toolkit really called Situate, which is aimed at allowing venues to put together their own location-aware apps and kind of bring that sort of technology to venues that previously haven't been able to access it, just because of cost and time as much as anything. So it can be used for visitor guides, and so far the main sector we've been dealing with is museums and heritage, but we're beginning to get some interesting inquiries from other sectors. In fact, we're working on a couple of projects at the moment, one in healthcare and one with an airline, rather strangely, but there we are. But it can be used for exhibition gallery guides, audio tours, that sort of thing, inside a venue, and outside a venue, walking trails and so on. Can be used for wayfinding, and aspects of it make it suitable for using for event guides and bringing content to different audiences by with different accessibility needs as well. There's just a couple of examples coming up of ones that were built recently. So this was for the Petrie Museum at UCL in London, which is a very tight little museum, and put some beacons in around there and created an app for them that triggers content as you move around the museum. And the thing about this one was right from start to finish, so the initial conversation with the curator over the phone to having the app in the App Store ready for them was 3-week duration, so it was very, very short time frame. These screenshots are from a walking trail that was developed by a Sheffield student as part of his final year project using Situate, and it takes you on a tour. It's called Where Bombs Fell, and it takes you on a walking tour around the city centre, and it incorporates things like in the middle screenshot there you've got a 1940s map kind of overlaid over the current map, so you can see where you are in the context of 1940s. And all sorts of different things you can put into the app. So on the left we've got just standard pictures and content. On the right we've got audio, so that's taken from an audio trail for the 5 Weirs walk out to Meadowhall. You can have interactive maps and floor plans, that sort of thing. And we use location triggers in the app. So you use beacons. We most typically have used Estimate beacons, which is the one down the bottom right. But we're partnering with a lighting company now, Situate, who produce smart modules, and their smart modules include an iBeacon component within the unit itself. So for the Petrie Museum, they actually put in lighting that incorporated beacons in, so that there weren't any separate standalone beacons to manage, which was quite nice. And I think there's going to be some quite interesting possibilities come out of that sort of partnership. That might be a little bit hard to see, but GPS can be a trigger as well, so that's just a screenshot from the Situate CMS where you can specify a location and a radius around it, and as you move into that location, something will trigger in the app. And working with Panasonic to use their Link-Ray technology, which is kind of Li-Fi is the more generic term for it, where you're getting information through your camera that ends up being decoded and can carry a unique ID, which you then use to trigger information. So the point being that Situate can be used with multiple types of location trigger. I'm sure there'll be other triggers that we introduce in over time as well, but those are the ones that we're using at the moment. That's just an example of the Panasonic Link-Ray app that we developed last year. It also demonstrates another aspect of it, which you can have multiple versions of an app. So in their case, they obviously wanted a Japanese version, which is the one on the left, and an English version. Well, that's just saying the same point. So the fact that you can produce different versions of an app it's just a way that allows venues just to target different audiences. So it could be language, it could be accessibility needs. So a venue could create a visitor guide that's really focused on either visually disabled people or physically disabled people, and just tailor the content to that audience. Another feature that we've been developing is the ability to send out messages to people that have the map installed, and the ability to target that by where the user actually is. So you could, for example, send a message out to anybody currently in the building and say, I don't know, there's a talk about to begin or something. This is just a view of the back end side of it. So the real aim behind Situate is that it puts venues in control of the apps. So they can create them, they can manage them, they can look after them themselves without having to go through the whole cycle of everything going through an agency, and an agency being involved in keeping it updated and so on. We give CMS access to the venue, and with a little bit of training they can do everything else pretty much. That's just another view from the back end where you can see the overall structure of your app and then click in and get straight to a particular screen. The other aspect of what we've been doing is using the Situate platform as a starting point, but then using that as a layer to then build on top of. So this particular one, Bicycle Island, was an app that we built for Isle of Wight Council. And there's a very Situate component to it, which is the guide. So it's promoting a particular part of the Isle of Wight, which is a bike trail between Cowes and Newport. And there's all sorts of really interesting heritage and wildlife information. So we've got that in a guide, and that's kind of very standard Situate. But then the additional stuff that we've built was tracking journeys for people cycling along the bike trail, and set challenges for the community. So each month we create a new challenge with a distance target, and everybody cycling along that route is contributing to that overall cumulative distance. And then based on how big that ultimate distance is, there's a donation made to charity. So each month there's a different recipient charity. I think this month it's a charity called Isle Access, and they provide experiences for accessible cycling for disabled people. So they're very worthy and good causes. But the overall premise being that the Isle of Wight Council is really trying to encourage cycling and get people off the cars. It's a really horrible route between Cowes and Newport by car and bus. It's very congested and clogged up. So trying to get people onto bikes is the underlying premise behind this. So we're doing things like detecting when people are getting onto the route and then beginning to collect location information. And this is just one of the views from the admin tool. You can see the map on the left is the location information that comes in. Then we do a bit of post-processing on that just to kind of clean up the location information, and from that we're able to derive distances and so on. I think that's about it. There we are. Any questions?
What's the commercial model?
Well, there's a couple of different aspects to it. So the simplest commercial model is that we charge the venues a subscription fee to have access to Situate. So just by paying a fixed monthly cost, they're able to create an app. We take care of the fact that it stays up to date with technology and so on, but they can keep it up to date from a content side.
So they gain access to the back-end CMS.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the kind of core model. The other business model is around us doing more of that and kind of providing the setup and config and so on. And then also, as with the Bicycle Island one, there's a whole potential service that we can offer for building bespoke functionality on top of the core platform. So kind of mixture of all of those.
So do you undertake the maintenance of, say, if the beacons has a battery life of 2 years, you go in there and maintain all the infrastructure for them?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, that side of it's taken away with the Staccato lighting, because that it completely eliminates that part of it. But with the standalone, with the kind of little estimate beacons, yeah, that's something that we would be looking after. I mean, typically the battery life on those is around 2 years. So probably the thing to do with that is just say you're going to replace it after 2 years and either strip the whole lot out and put new ones in, or at least replace the batteries, which rather than kind of piecemeal going in and doing one or two at a time.
As a user experience, do you get? I get the impression you get multiple apps, sort of one for each provider. But is there the opportunity to have just the one app and then just discover things as you're walking around? So you happen to be in a city and you discover all the.
Yeah, well, there's probably. There's three ways that an app can be delivered. So there's a public Situate app, and that lists venues in it. And as a user, you would select which one you're interested in, and that pulls the content down to your phone. The second option would be for a venue to have a completely standalone app, just that works in its own right. And then the third option is a more bespoke one, that perhaps integrating other features and so on. So the nearest to what you've just said there is probably the Situate model, where you've got multiple venues on there. But you would have to, the user would have to proactively decide which venues they want to pull down to their phone before they start getting alerts.
Can I just mention that there's a set of protocols around the physical web and things like Google's Nearby API, which is starting to integrate exactly that into operating systems. So as of next year, the next generation of Pixel 2 has got it integrated already. The latest version of Android has got it integrated. If you're near something that is broadcasting a physical web URL, your phone will pick it up and give you it won't necessarily be a hard notification, but they've got this concept of soft notifications. So it'll show you that there is something nearby to interact with, and you'll be able to get a list of things that are nearby to interact with. Apple haven't decided what they're doing about it yet, although it is integrated into the iOS version of Chrome. So if you're running Chrome, you'll get notifications that something nearby is trying to talk to you, or is available to you for you to. And it's not just, it's two-way as well, isn't it? The physical web protocol now. So it's not just something broadcasts a signal and you say, oh, there's something here and I can get information about it. It can install an interface onto your phone immediately that allows you to interact with that object. So it could be like a vending machine, for example, and it gives you all of the controls you need to operate the vending machine on your phone instantly without,
I mean, that's a good accessibility thing, because I suppose you could set your phone to say, I'm blind, I need to have a text-based way of using the vending machine.
Yeah. So it gives you remote control, interactivity for anything that you might want to interact with in the environment. So Google are looking at it as basically a search engine for physical things in the environment. And people aren't really aware that this is coming, but this is, the technology is quite mature on this stuff now. So
It'll be interesting to see where Apple goes with it, I think.
Yeah. I mean, Google Nearby API also gives you the ability to see, to be notified when someone nearby you has the same app installed as you. That's another one of its features. So.
For information, over the next sort of 9-12 months, wherever you've got bus stops with the electronic LED displays, they're in the process of being upgraded, and they will have Bluetooth low energy beacons in to trigger audio announcements on accessible apps. So when somebody that's got the app is nearby, it'll alert them, and you can either get it to say where you are or read out what's on the display. So Bluetooth low energy coming to
I was
Sheffield.
involved with the Wayfinder project. That was a a joint venture between London School, Royal London School for the Blind in London, and Us2, the web applications company. Developed a standard called Wayfinder, and so public transport hubs and venues can install beacons and provide audio guidance to people through their mobile phone, and blind and partially sighted people to navigate. So all of that's how we integrate.
Yeah, I came across one of those at a museum in Berlin very recently, and they're far better to use, far more interesting and easier to use than the other kind of guides you get to museums. And in that case, it was completely under the control of the museum. So you had to actually get them deposit or some identity card or something like that. Then they'd hand over this little gadget, and then you'd walk around the museum with the earphones, and they'd tell you what was going on. It struck me that it's very sensitive, the amount of information in it. The particular museum is almost like minimal information. Presumably you've got to sort of overload people with the amount of information you can give to them on a device like that. But the other thing which did strike me is that you seem to be saying that you can actually do this in a form which is downloadable to phones, and it links into this comment about public transport, which another gentleman was saying. I do know that I had an undergraduate student last year who was looking at ways to encourage people to use public transport, and she was talking about using apps to do this. And I was just wondering, might there be a way that you could use that, not only tell you where you are in a city in terms of a street map, but provide live information about where the bus routes are.
Absolutely. I mean,
there are already quite a lot of apps out there, and interestingly, talking about Berlin, BVG in Berlin are carrying out a number of trials over the next 12 months to explore that, to roll out, and that will become a national project in Germany for transport. And Transport for London being the most forward-thinking are involved in that as well.
We were involved in some solutions with beacons in the industrial space, and the use cases we were looking at was actually evacuating people from a building that was on fire, especially if they've got disabilities, but also to help the firefighters who've never been in this building before, and it's now thick with smoke, so visibility is very low, so as to find out, so we would locate where somebody was in a room, and we would help the firefighters or others get in or out of the building. So I think the use cases are
all sorts of use. Absolutely. I mean, the one that we've worked with people with before, similar to that, not quite as dramatic as that scenario, but where you've got visitors to a space that aren't familiar with fire exits, and perhaps even mundane things like meeting rooms where they need to go within a building, and there's some many applications beyond the kind of museum sort of sector.
If you can do it in 3D as opposed to a 2D map, then again lots of other possibilities. Things like a construction site. We know that most accidents on a construction site happen in the first 2 weeks of a guy arriving, because he doesn't know where all the risks are. So having an app that can actually work on multiple levels, so he realises that at a ground level these are my risks, at the next level these are my risks, and so on. You've got again many more use cases.
Great. Okay.
It's good to know that there's someone in the city that is using this technology.
Maybe completely to one side, but probably just something to be aware of. Have you come across the Magnus app? No. So Magnus are creating a database that is basically Shazam for art. So
I've seen that. I think the solution that we're giving, it's not, the technology is a means to an end. It's really empowering the venues to curate material and interpret material and give them a channel to use it. So it doesn't bother me at all that other people are doing technical things in this space. In fact, it's encouraging that more people are doing things in this space. But the thing that excites me most is empowering the venues to actually take hold of this and do some really interesting stuff and creative stuff to help express what they want to express about their artifacts. That's where it gets really interesting, I think.
I've definitely, when it's done well, it's absolutely incredible. So the David Bowie exhibition from last year in London was so sensory tracked that you could literally walk from one section to the other, and you didn't realise you'd walked into the next section. You walk back in, and it carries on from the point that it doesn't trigger back to the system where it just sparks it off. It literally, as an interactive